Welcome to Contradictory Theater, where Vera not only gets annoyed at a good thing, but gets annoyed at it for being good. Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Season 4, Episode 2. I should explain that for people who might not understand what the heck I'm getting at. I wasn't going to watch this season. I'd written it off. Season 3 was indefensibly bad. And I even understand that one of the defenses is the writer's strike complicated things. And I'm sure that's true, but the end result is a disaster. I wasn't going to watch this season. Then, my friend Jesse, who is a completionist and a Trekkie, was watching it and told me it's actually pretty good. Now, she did warn me that the first episode's not very good, but that the second episode was really good. So what I pledged to her was I will watch the first 2 episodes. If that second one that you're telling me is really good, stinks, I'm done. It doesn't stink. It's actually really, really good. Which is annoying because now I'm going to have to watch this whole season. And I'm not confident it's going to be this good again. But, yeah. The Griffin incident. Star Trek doesn't do flat-out horror very much. But given that the only good episode of Season 3, to my memory, was the one that leaned at least a little into tension and horror aspects, I'm starting to think that at the very least, this particular series of Star Trek should lean more into it. Although I'm immediately going to retract that, because arguably the finale was trying to at least work with some cosmic horror-y tropes and blew it. It just blew it so bad. So I don't know. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. But yeah, Ghost Ship, basically. And I really, really like it. I'm going to go out on a limb. I suspect fandom's probably split on this, largely because it lacks the one thing you really expect from sci-fi in general, but Star Trek in specific, which is a scientific explanation, even a technobabble one, for what the heck was going on. Because otherwise, seems to imply it was actually supernatural. And that is where things are left here. It doesn't get fully explained. Which, and I know I'm an outlier on this when it comes to a lot of sci-fi fans, I appreciate. Because as much as I love sci-fi, and I know sci-fi is much, just inherently by its nature, much more about explaining things than fantasy is, well, at least than fantasy needs to be. A lot of fantasy is over-explained too. But in sci-fi, people expect an explanation. But I'll nod towards Doctor Who. I love when the Doctor can admit, I don't know what that was. It's one of the things I really like about the 2-parter, The Impossible Planet and the Satan Pit. It is one of the aspects that I like about an episode that I otherwise don't, which is The Haunting of Villa Diodati. There is a ghostly aspect of that that is never explained, and I appreciate that. And I don't feel that's contradictory to a sci-fi setting, because my perspective on this... So, at one point, somebody asked, I think it was Kirk, do you believe in ghosts? And I found myself thinking, if I existed in this setting, so, don't take this as my real world answer necessarily, but if I existed in this setting, in this sci-fi setting where they're trying to find and explain everything they can, how would I answer that? And I think what my answer would be is that the universe is too large, too complicated, too strange, and too much to ever fit in anyone's head. There will be things in this universe that not only we don't understand, but we can't understand. We will never understand. And sometimes when people run into these things that they do not understand, they need a name to call it. And I suppose ghosts is as good a name for any for one of the things that we don't and probably can't fully understand. That's my perspective on this within a sci-fi setting, so I'm totally on board with this. And also, it helps that it's really, really, really well filmed and well paced. The setup could have led to a bajillion jump scares, and I should have been able to predict the exact progression of things. And honestly, in a way, I kind of could, but it still did it really well. Let's just start with the fact that there are multiple shots in this, expertly done, where something moves in the background. They do that a number of times, and it's perfect every time. It's there. You really only see it because it moves. There isn't a musical sting. They haven't necessarily positioned characters with like a super obvious bit of negative space where like something's gonna show up there. Like the one that really stood out to me was Kirk and La'an like walking down the hallway, and it's framed like how I'd expect a walking down the hallway shot to be, and then I see something scuttle in the background, and I'm like, what the was that? It's really well shot. It's so atmospheric, and it does a lot to make you second guess what's happening. Like, obviously, T'Pring isn't really here. Obviously, Kirk is not hearing David cry. But when part of the crew of Enterprise showed up, boy, did it have me second guessing myself. Because, like, obviously I called immediately, okay, that's not really them. This is just more of the ship, or Harper or whatever her name was, messing with them. But it really kept me wondering, because they behave the way you'd expect the actual versions of them to behave for longer than most things trying to do a horror movie feel would do. And even when Pike and Una started doing stuff that, like, well, that they definitely wouldn't do that, I still couldn't immediately leap to, well, this is definitely like hallucinatory versions of them and they're not even here, because it would cut over to La'an with Uhura and with Ortega, and they were still behaving normally. Normally in something like this, the instant like one thing like sort of gives the hint like, oh, we're actually like part of this whole thing, then like they'd all just start being, you know, big spooky. I don't know, big spooky. Anyways, but what I love is they cut back to La'an, and especially like when she starts attacking Uhura. Uhura acts genuinely terrified of her in a way that I would expect Uhura to be. She doesn't suddenly start bleeding from the eyes and like do a scary face and go, ah! So it left me wondering, like, okay, some of them are acting way out of character, but some of them aren't. Does that mean that they're all hallucinatory, or that they are actually here, but some of them are possessed? Like, in hindsight, it's kind of obvious, like, that they are just all hallucinatory, but the fact that it could even have me doubting that conclusion at all while I was watching it, that's real tricky. For somebody as familiar with the tropes of this kind of story as I am, that's good work. And also, funny thing that ends up happening is a lot of the stuff done with Kirk and David is the kind of stuff that 9 times out of 10 I'd be like, oh, yeah, like we have established he's got a young kid, so he's going to hear the baby cry and da-da-da-da-da. But there is admittedly a weight added to it because I know what happens to David. And more than that, not just what happens to David, I know what that does to Kirk. I know how that impacts him and the lingering trauma he was left with as a result of that. And just having that knowledge in the back of my head made those moments where he's hearing David cry, or he thinks he's hearing David cry, land so much more than they had any right to. This whole thing is just masterfully paced, masterfully executed. I am nervous where they go with La'an after this, because it really, really does feel like, between this and stuff that happened last season, it really is starting to feel like they're leaning into this sort of genetic predetermination sort of thing for her, which I don't trust this show to tackle as a topic. But within the confines of this episode, I think they muddy those waters just enough, and they even kind of make the point, like, you're not a Khan, you're not a Romulan, you're something else, but you're still dangerous. I kind of dismissively mentioned T'Pring. I actually really, really like the scenes between her and Spock. And while I never doubted that she was a hallucination, I'm like, logistically, there's no way she's here. I still love how genuine their interactions are, basically up until the point that she stuns him. And that is a while. And even after she starts torturing him, she's still talking and behaving the way you'd think T'Pring would. Now, later when Pike and Una show up, they are acting a bit more exaggeratedly and a bit more like, hey, we're evil. T'Pring never does. She's just calm, reserved, the way she always is, as she starts to do horrifying things to Spock. This is just astoundingly good. Like, even the wrap-up with... I really thought, once I realized that they were going to have this whole scene of, like, Pike leaving out some of the details of what happened in his report, I thought I was going to be like, oh, this is going to be some BS. But, like, his conversation with La'an actually landed. It actually felt like it worked. There really isn't a weak aspect of this, so long as you're willing to accept a supernatural story in a sci-fi setting. And again, I'm not saying you're wrong if that's a hang-up for you, but if it's not, this is damn near flawless. Like, I would happily put this up against Event Horizon. And I think this is better simply because I think Event Horizon leans too much on, the gore, goopy ick factor for its own good. But this gave me, like, that feeling of, like, oh, this is the best aspects of something like Event Horizon. And I don't get this enough. Space is an excellent place to set something supernatural. 'Cause you're trapped. It's space. What's the classic question about any haunted house story? Why don't they just leave? Well, in a haunted house story, they will contrive a million reasons. Oh, the door's locked. Oh, the door vanished. Oh, it's turned into a maze. You got to do something. But it's space. Where the hell are you going to go? It's just... It's so good. It is so good. And I will be stunned if there's another episode this season that's this good. But fine, Jesse. I'll watch the rest of the damned season just because it gave me this. This alone is better than the best episode of season 3. So I am going to say, even if the rest of this season sucks, it was worth it for this. I would like it to be worth it for more than just this, but it was worth it for this. The Griffin incident. Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Season 4, Episode 2. What'd you think of this one? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon pays the bills. Enables me to do this as my living. Even if you can't help me out that way, like, share, subscribe. They all help. Don't worry too much about it, though. We take a relaxed attitude around here, so just come on back next time you need a break. And now to thank my highest supporting patrons: Robin Moore, Jared Boyce, Zubin Lupfula, Daphne Matthews, Kay Johnston, Auntie Kate 808, Mira G, Angry Casperl, Dave Hall, Snark Shark, Oliver B, Mystic Shadow, Sean Miller, Welsh Wrestling Geeks, Magdalena, Melissa Pedersen, Becky Sparks, Twilord, Tracy Scrabbit, Palba Rabajoggle, Sir Didymus is my favorite, and additionally, from the lower tiers of support, I'd also like to thank Isabel Lovelace, Hey Chica, and Lee Campo. What are you guys doing? Oh my goodness, who's back there? Oh, Worm, why do you do this? Ah!